Hello everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review and breakdown of the second trailer for Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. Now this is the 25th superhero movie within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, following the story of Shang-Chi as he's drawn into the Ten Rings organisation, which we saw way back in the first Iron Man movie from 2008, and he's working with his father and soon learning the evil intentions of the group and coming to an eventual confrontation with his father. Now I've already done a review of the first trailer and you can check that out on the channel. I will leave the link within the description. Now Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is still due for release in theatres only on September the 3rd 2021, and it will release 45 days before streaming on Disney Plus. And I actually prefer that because I'm always an advocate of theatres only releases, and I think we should be giving theatres much chance to survive and recover from the pandemic. So I'm very glad that they're taking on that release strategy, and I wish they were doing that for Black Widow as well. But we focus now on this second trailer, and overall, whilst I've enjoyed the first trailer, this second trailer was far superior, a lot better. A lot more action beats, bigger reveals. It was much more snappier. You had that typical kind of drumming hip hop beat style about the music. It was much bigger in terms of the effects and the action, and I have to say it's got me much more hyped now to watch this overall film. So we're going to go through the trailer and talk about all the extra elements that were shown throughout this second version. We start off with Shang-Chi's father talking to him when he's a young child, talking about the Ten Rings and how much they meant to him in terms of growing up, and then we see him wearing them, both rings, on his wrist. And I like the way that they visualized the rings and how much he manages to weaponize them, because if you know the comics, the original interpretation is that they were the smaller versions that they fit on his fingers, if you go back to the Mandarin and how he uses the 10 rings against Iron Man. So I like the fact that they've been a bit more imaginative and creative in the way that he wields the rings. I like the way that he shoots them from his forearms and they seem to take a certain formation and exhibit a blue energy as he attacks certain opponents. So I just like that. I like the fact that they've been just a bit more innovative in the use of the rings. And we see him again talking to Shang-Chi about his destiny. We have the next shot here of Michelle Yeoh talking to a young Shang-Chi again, talking about his destiny, and it's always welcome to see Michelle Yeoh. She still looks fantastic in this shot here. And then we get further clips of a young Shang-Chi training again, and I think the overall narrative that we're going to see is that he is told about his destiny, and we have that typical story beat of a youngster not ready to embrace it, so he runs away for some sort of reason, and then he later on comes back and he eventually has to embrace his destiny overall. Very familiar territory that what we've seen a lot of the times. We get further clips here where we see when he's younger and he's training. Very familiar vibes of what we saw from both Doctor Strange and Batman Begins in terms of the training routines. Again, very familiar, but I have no problem with that. Again, that ties into that classic hero journey where we see how exactly he attains his skills. I like to see that origin narrative. I think that's very good. I think you can add a lot of layer and depth to the character in terms of seeing how he became to be in the first place. So I have no problems with that. We see further shots of him taking on other assassins on a scaffolding within a building. So again, is this a case of he's either trying to search out his father, or is it the other case, or his father has learned of his existence and him returning, and that he's sending out these assassins to really test how strong he is? And we get that further clip where the father says, I knew my soldiers would not be able to defeat you, and I was glad that I was right. So I think that's what we will be seeing here. Or will it be a case of his father searching him out, realizing his return, and just to see how competent he is in terms of his abilities? We see him again coming back to his father, and we get that confrontational scene where he states that he's nothing but a criminal, and he's killing people, and his father tells him to watch what he says, how he talks about him. So again, we're going to get that tension, and I like the fact that they're going to keep that narrative throughout the story. It's not going to be a case of the father will only be in the beginning of the movie and then brought in at the end. I think they're going to try and keep that tension running throughout the whole narrative. So that'll be very interesting as well. Again, that can be exploiting a lot of potential, of a lot of depth between the relationship of the father and the son. We see another cool shot of Michelle Yeoh weaving this kind of spiritual energy as it looks like she's going to be training Shang-Chi again. So she's going to be the mentor again, giving it very familiar vibes of what we saw in Doctor Strange with Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, training Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. So very familiar territory again. Some people may have an issue with that, but I won't, because again, this is the first time we're seeing this character. So you're going to get a lot of origin, you're going to get a lot of training. We then get the further fight encounter on the bus that was highlighted on the first trailer when he's taken on a certain assassin. A few good action shots where he's hanging back on the side of the bus, he's getting dragged on there. Very good action sequences. So once again, wrapping up all the excitement that we've seen throughout this trailer. We get a further line later when we see Shang-Chi mentioning the fact that he thought he could change his life, he change his name and start a new life for himself, but he eventually can't escape the shadow of his father. So as I mentioned before, that's the narrative we're going to get. It is probably more likely that his father will hunt him down and track him down. We see those skyline shots of the helicopter and he's taking to his father's fortress. So that's where I think it will be. We have another cool shot of his father throwing the rings that it looks like it's Michelle Yeoh's character. Again, this will be a very dramatic encounter where the father maybe kills Michelle Yeoh, and this might be a flashback scene, or it might be an earlier confrontation, and this could be what draws Shang-Chi to an eventual confrontation against his father. Again, we wait and see what happens. I'm betting this is probably more of a flashback scene when the mentor of Michelle Yeoh will talk that she tried to stop Shang-Chi's father and him using his power of the 10 rings, but maybe she failed and she had to go away before being killed, and then that's where she had to train Shang-Chi later on. So very similar, if you like, to what we saw in Star Wars in terms of the Revenge of the Sith, when Yoda tries to destroy Sidious, he fails, he has to go away, he's exiled, and then he trains Luke later on. I think that's the kind of narrative we could be seeing as well. Another cool scene is where we see the village fight, and we see here we have the huge bear and he's throwing away a couple of the soldiers. Again, I think this might be exposition of an earlier battle. We did see a precursor scene of this in the first trailer. I think it was a nighttime scene when they were fighting, so I think this might be hinting at a earlier historical battle. Again, we might get reference to Shang-Chi's father and the various battles that he had where he's got the rings, and we see how he ascends to power. We see further shots here again when Shang-Chi is fighting or training in the tournament ring. I love that cool shot where he kind of flips down and flips back up again. Very cool, very good on there. We see the other female character. She may be initially an assassin, but learns to train him as well. So again, they just have to, I guess, beef up the female participation within this role. So no problem here. We have more great shots of Shang-Chi's father, as I mentioned before, wielding the rings against some enemies. And again, we'll get some detailed backstory as to how he attained the rings in the first place. I love all that, tapping into the mythology, the lore, the history. I think it adds a lot of weight and context to the film overall, so that's very good. And then we get the first big surprising reveal when we see Shang-Chi and he's underwater. He encounters this dragon, and a lot of fans are referenced to the fact that this could be Fin Fang Foom. Now, if you know your comics history, you will learn that Fin Fang Foom was an antagonist within Iron Man. He was a dragon that was used under control of the Mandarin, who we all know is the famous antagonist of Iron Man, and he would use Fin Fang Foom. So this is what I believe the interpretation of the character is. It looks like it might be a spiritual encounter, much more than an actual version of Fin Fang Foom taking on Shang-Chi, because that will be a lot of effects that they will use, and maybe that might be a bit too much of a stretch. Again, it depends on how they interpret the character. It did actually remind me of a similar scene that we saw in the Aquaman movie, when Aquaman was underwater and he encountered a big statue. So will they use that scene as a catalyst for Shang-Chi coming to realise his destiny? We'll wait and see. But it's a very good visual that we saw on here. And then we get the climatic shot of Shang-Chi facing off again against his father. A very good scene that we see on here, exhibiting the yellow energy against the father's blue energy that we see on here. Very good. Is this a climatic battle? More than likely it probably is. Again, maybe too similar to what we saw in Black Panther, where we saw two versions of a similar power set against each other. But it could be something else, but we'll wait and see. But I would bet that it's probably the climatic battle. And then we get to the final shot, which got a lot of people talking. When we go back to the tournament setup, and it very much looks like it is the Abomination. If you remember, he was from the Incredible Hulk sequel starring Edward Norton way back in 2008, and a lot of people have alluded to the fact that he's got much more of that comic book accurate design in terms of his facial structure. He's got those fins at the side of his face, so looking a lot more like the comic book version. And we see here that he's taken on what seems to be Wong from Doctor Strange. Now, I'm sure we'll find out why exactly Wong is there, why exactly Abomination is there. I think this is going to be a throwaway scene. I wouldn't expect Wong to be too prominent of a character throughout this movie. It does beg the question, where is he? Why is he here? If we remember, he was very much working alongside Doctor Strange at the end of that movie. So what's forced him to be in this tournament setup? Will we get any mentions or reference to Doctor Strange or earlier calls to the Multiverse of Madness? We'll wait and see. I think this is just going to be a quick throwaway shot. We did learn sometime that Abomination will be returning, but perhaps this is an early precursor, because maybe we'll see Abomination make an appearance also in the She-Hulk series that is filming currently as well. So that's what I think this is a precursor more towards. I wouldn't expect too big of a scene. As I mentioned at the start of this breakdown, just a much more spectacular, much more juicy, much more tasty trailer in here. And again, it's got me more hyped up now for the film overall. So much more improvement again, greater action beats, a lot more hinting at the backstory and the depth, in particularly of the father role as well. Many people have assumed that he will be the Mandarin that we should have got way back in the third Iron Man film. Hopefully so, because I still hated the way that they treated the character in the third Iron Man film. So this will be, I think, much more of an atonement and an improvement overall in terms of the visualization of the Mandarin, and I think that's all great to see. So just further pleased with this trailer, a lot more excited, a lot more hyped up, and I think a special improvement. And yeah, hopefully Shang-Chi will be another fine addition within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So those are my thoughts and feelings and my breakdown on the second Shang-Chi trailer. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you more hyped? Are you more excited for this trailer? Or do you think it's still lacking and you still feel that perhaps Shang-Chi won't be quite the big success as what Marvel was hoping for, particularly if the rumours are true and it won't manage to get a China release? I still think they'll still manage to get a release within China, because that's by design why they were introducing this character, to really make a big splash within the Asian markets overall. So I think they'll manage to turn that around, but we will wait and see in the future how that happens overall. So please hit those like and subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content in the future. If you have any other suggestions or feedback within the content of the channel, then just let me know in the comments below. So that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.